Why in the world are we not doing this? Moon Gang, I recently stumbled across a story that highlighted how a group of very powerful retail traders literally swung an election. As I was mulling through it, I knew immediately that I had to share it with all of you because it is a perfect example of how if we properly organize, that's our best way. That's our best chances of actually enacting true change for market transparency and market fairness. I gotta share this with all of you because it's a very, very powerful story. But before I get into that, if you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to join up with the Moon Gang by hitting the subscribe button. Here's what you need to know. About a month ago, in March of 2022, there was a very close election, a very close presidential election in Korea where the margins were razor thin. Now, when all the dust settled, the thing that set apart the winner, the guy who became president versus the guy who is now just a footnote in the story, was the retail trading voting bloc. You heard that right. Retail traders like you, like me, were the thing that ended up deciding the president of a nation. Here are the exact details, and then we're going to get into why this is so impactful and why it's so important for us. First, they shook stocks. Now South Korea's army of nearly 10 million retail equity traders is helping reshape politics as the country counts down to its presidential election. While retail trading has surged in many markets during the pandemic, it's gone into overdrive in Korea amid pressure on living standards and a proliferation of trading apps on mobile devices. As you can see in this graph, the number of trading accounts has roughly doubled. That's right, doubled since the last election in 2017, and 1 in about every 5 Koreans have become stock market investors. Personally, I find it interesting to note that there's a lot of similarities between what was going on in Korea and US recently. Obviously, there has been some economic hardship. There's also been that proliferation of what's going on with trading apps. And all of a sudden, you're seeing a massive growth. Now, I don't believe that the US percentage-wise grew the same amount in terms of new traders, but in magnitude, the US actually outpaced South Korea, but that kind of makes sense just because there's a lot more people in the US, but that's important for where we're going to take this because it means a lot more voters. Before we get into where I personally see this potentially going in the US, I do want to highlight a couple more interesting details of how this all played out in Korea, not only with the retail trading bloc, but also the candidates themselves. Both candidates were trying to express how cool and hip they were by being in touch with the young voter base by spreading their messages on social media such as YouTube. Now, just to differentiate them a little, the opposition party, who, just so you know, a little bit of a spoiler, ended up winning the election, was pledging to remove a capital gains levy on share sales and crack down on practices that favor financial institutions and company executives over small stockholders. I believe that deserves a little bit of an indoor clap. And then the ruling party, who is the party that ended up losing this election, promised to scrap tax on security transactions. Hey, even though we lost, I think that's a little bit of an applause. But here's what I think is so incredibly cool. Both candidates were concerned that short selling shares not only tends to put downward pressure on the market, but also hurts retail investors who employ simple strategies that count on stocks rising. Honestly, it gets even better. The guy who ended up winning, Yoon, I very much hope that I'm pronouncing that properly, a former public prosecutor, has flagged tougher penalties for naked short selling. One more time for the people in the back. The guy who ended up becoming the president of Korea specifically called out short selling, naked short selling, and tougher penalties on said naked short selling. That is so incredibly cool. All right. I can hear what you're thinking. Sure, that sounds pretty cool, but what in the hell does that mean for us? What does that mean for US market transparency, fairness, the SEC that's seemingly not listening to us, these people within Wall Street and Congress who are doing very, at minimal, we'll say, sus stuff? Well, here's the way I would look at it. We already know retail is very, very powerful. According to Bloomberg, 80 to 85% of Wall Street institutions are actively tracking what retail is doing, and they're only doing that because they know they got to pay attention to us. But beyond that, if you really want to enact change, you have to go through the proper channels. You really do. Whether you're looking at it for politics, Wall Street, regulations for both of them, it's all through your voting. Now, right away, I can hear like how many scoffs just happened. I can literally hear you scoffing of like as if votes are going to do it. Folks, here's the example. This is the example right here. The president of a country was selected. He was the guy who was outspoken against naked short selling. This to me is proof. This is real life proof. This happened just a month ago that all of a sudden, I think if we kind of realign our thoughts, and I think what's happening on our social media and within our own community is great, but all of a sudden, it's one thing for us to talk. The difference is all of a sudden where we're actually putting our voice in terms of these votes, the people we're picking to properly represent us. And beyond that, yeah, I get that there's an argument of, okay, are they going to be held accountable? It's like one thing to run on a platform, and then it's a completely different thing to actually do what you're going to say you're going to do. I'm not oblivious to that, but I know we, to at least have a shot, should be looking at the people who are saying they're attempting to do something for the small-time retail traders and investors, because if that's what we want, we need to pick the people who are going to fairly represent us. And beyond that, obviously, there's a lot of great things going on with petitions. We just need to show the U.S. group. And when I'm talking about the U.S. group, I mean the U.S. group of people who are trying to run for office, that we are a massive block of voters. And when it counts, we show up. So, like we're seeing in Korea, we should be doing this. It blows my mind that we're not. I'm looking for whatever group to really organize and continue to show that we are a force to be reckoned with. And I truly believe in the US that we too could sway elections. Now, obviously, these are just my own thoughts, and I'm nothing but a dumb ape. So I'd love to get your thoughts and opinions in a comment below. If you want to help me out with the algorithm, it would be awesome if you could hit that like button. And don't forget to join up with the Moon Gang by hitting the subscribe button. I truly appreciate it, and I'll catch you in the next video.